In this segment we're going to tie a quill gordon. So we're going to start by tying our thread to the hook and creating a thread base from the eye of the hook back to the bend of the hook. Flip off your tag end. And at the bend of the hook you're going to create 3 or 4 overlapping turns of thread to create a little ball of thread right at the back of the hook here, over top of which your tail will be tied. That little ball of thread will help to splay your tail fibers out in a bit of a fan, which will help the fly to sit a little better on the water. Now, to put the tail on the fly, we're going to use a spade feather. I believe it's called a spade feather. It's a feather from the outside of the cape, from the sides of the cape. The barbs are long and stiff, and they'll help to support the fly very well. So let's clip off a few of these. And we'll gather them up. And the length of the tail should be roughly the length of the hook, maybe a little bit shorter, but you want them to be about the length of the hook. So that looks pretty good. So we're going to put that on here, and we're going to apply our pinch wrap and secure these fibers into place. Okay. Now you want to wrap back flush against that ball of thread that you made, and you'll see that just helps these fibers to splay out just a little bit here so your tail is fanned. Secure the tailing bunch up toward the eye of the hook, and then you want to come in and clip off this excess on a bit of a taper here. I don't really have too much excess here, but we'll get a little bit of it off of there. There we go. And bind that stuff down. Okay, bring your thread up to a point about 1/3 to 1/4 of the way back from the eye of the hook, and now we're going to tie in our wing. Now the wing is a lemon wood duck feather. We're going to strip back the fluff on the end, and then with the front of the feather we're just going to gather all of these barbs together, kind of bunch them up into our winging bunch. The length of the wing should be about the length of the tail, or again about the length of the hook shank. And we're going to tie this bunch in right here. A couple of loose wraps. Actually, let me reset that. Let's do a pinch wrap to put that on. I think it'll apply a little bit better if we do that. So we're going to gather our winging bunch together, measure for length, pop it on top of the hook here, and we're going to do a pinch wrap to secure this bunch down into place. And you want to make 2 or 3 snug wraps, but not too tight. And then if you take the tips of the barbs and stroke them up, any barbs that may have rotated to the back of the hook in that process will now realign on top of the hook, and you can go ahead after that and make a few more securing wraps to bind all that down. Clip off the butt end, and again make a bit of a tapering cut here, and then bind those butt ends down nice and secure. By making tapering cuts, we're allowing our tailing material and our winging material to kind of blend together, and you can see the result of that is that you get a fly with a body that has a bit of a taper going from the tail up to the front of the fly. Now take your winging bunch and bring it up straight. Come in here with your thumbnail and kind of crease these barbs to get them to line up at a right angle to the hook. You want these to stand upright. So you start that process by kind of pinching with your thumbnail, grab the bunch and pull it back, and then make a few wraps of thread in front of the winging bunch. Nice tight against it there. And you see that gets that bunch to stand up at a right angle. Now we're going to divide our wing. I'm going to rotate the vise a little bit so that maybe you can see this a little bit better. What you want to do is you're going to take your wing and you're going to divide it as best as you can into 2 equal bunches. And we're going to do a an X wrap initially to separate the bunches. You're going to take your thread and you're going to create an X across the top of the wing to separate it. So you're going to bring your thread up behind the near wing, cross over top, drop your thread down in front of the far wing, and then you're going to do the opposite. Bring the thread up in front of the near wing, cross it over, and drop it down behind the far wing. Now I think my fingers kind of got in the way there a little bit, so let me do another one. You want to do 2 or 3 of these anyway. Behind the near wing, cross in front, down in front of the far wing, and then I'll try to get my fingers out of the way. In front of the far wing, cross over top, drop the thread down behind the far wing. So if I said that right. Just going to make your cross like that. And you'll see what that does is it divides our wing into 2 equal bunches. Now the wing these fibers are kind of splayed out a little bit, so now we're also going to do what's called the figure 8 wrap to kind of gather all these barbs together into a more unified wing bunch. So you're going to start like you do with an X wrap. You're going to bring your thread up and cross the top of the wing. You're then going to wrap it around the base of the wing. Hold the wing with your fingers, give just a little bit of tension to gather the barbs, and drop the thread below the shank of the hook. And then you're going to do the same thing with the near bunch. Wrap your thread around the base of it, maintain a little bit of tension, drop the thread down below the shank of the hook, and you can see it's starting to gather those wings into a more unified bunch. Let's do another one. And you can see we're doing pretty good. Okay, so now you'll notice that my wings are they're gathered well, but in this process they're still angled forward slightly. If you just come in with your fingers and pinch them back, maybe make another wrap or 2 of thread in front if you feel you need to really pop those wings up at a right angle. There you go, now we're looking pretty good. The wings are up at a right angle, and if I rotate the vise you can see we're gathered pretty good. So that's how to create your wing on this fly. Now let's tie in the body. Let's bring our thread back to the bend of the hook, and we're going to tie in a stripped peacock quill. Now you can make these from peacock eye feathers. If you immerse the peacock eye feather in a solution of 50% bleach and 50% water and let it soak for a few minutes, what will happen is all the flue, which is the iridescent little hair-like follicles that stick out from the quill, will burn off. The bleach will burn those off, and they will leave behind a bare quill. So you immerse your feather in the solution, allow the flue to burn off, then take your feather out, rinse it thoroughly in cold water to get all the bleach solution off, and then you want to store these in a jar of cold water. These need to be tied in wet. If you tie them in dry, they're too fragile and they will crack as you start tying them in. So this is one that I've had in a jar of cold water, and you're going to tie it in and bind it down. A couple of wraps here, and then, oops, I bumped the camera, sorry. And then clip off the excess here. And bring your thread up to a point just behind the wings. And now take your hackle plier and grasp the butt end of this quill. And to wrap this, you're going to wrap it very gently. Just enough tension to maintain the quill straight. If you apply any more tension, chances are you're going to snap the quill right off because it is very frail. So you're going to just wrap it forward in touching turns up toward the wings to create your body. Again, just the slightest bit of tension, just enough to maintain the quill straight, no more. And you can see it really creates a very nice segmented little body for you. And I think that's about all I'm going to get out of this one. So we're going to bind this down and get this off. Okay, and let me come in here and just clip this little excess quill out of the way carefully so I don't nick off any of my wing. And there you have your body. Now we're going to tie in our hackle, and we're going to use dun colored saddle hackle. I like to use 2 different shades of dun if I can. You don't have to, but I do think it gives a more natural appearance to the fly. So we've got one that's a little bit lighter, one that's a little bit darker. It's hard to tell on the camera there. But we're going to place these feathers back to back, and you want to tie them in. I've stripped barbs off here so I can tie in by bare quill. Tie them in on an angle. You want the pretty side of the feather facing you, and you're going to tie it in with just a little bit of quill exposed. Don't tie right where you pulled your barbs off. Leave a little bit of quill exposed. A couple wraps in front, and then behind the wing, and then I like to do a few wraps in front of the wing as well. It helps to create a more level base in front. And we're going to come in here and carefully clip the butt ends out of the way. There we go. Okay, secure that down. And now we're going to wrap our hackle, 1 feather at a time. Put my hackle plier on. And we're just going to make a few wraps in front and a few wraps behind the wing. It's okay to come in here and pull these wings back as you cross in front. Get that first wrap of hackle nice and tight against the wing if you can. It'll help to support your wing. Alright, that's good. And come in here and tie your feather off. And now we're going to clip the excess out of the way. And now we'll wrap our second feather. Now, as far as length of the barbs here, your barb length should be roughly 1.5 to 2 times the width of the gape, which is the distance between the point of the hook and the shank. And by maintaining those proportions, you'll ensure yourself a fly that's going to sit properly on the water and fish very well for you. Wrap your second feather up through the first. Again, feel free to come in here and pull some of this back if you need to. And you see we're getting a nice tight little collar of hackle, which is good. Try to get your last wrap of hackle in front of all the rest of it if you can. And then we're going to tie this feather off here as well. And if you trap some barbs, which inevitably you will, you just trim those away before you make your final knot, before you whip finish. You can do it after you whip finish also. So we'll just clean this head up a little bit, get some of this junk out of the way. Trim some of this back here too. Alright, couple of wraps to form a head, and then apply your whip finish. Now, just as a final note, you of course are going to glue your whip finish knot here, but I also apply a layer of lacquer or head cement over the quill body as well. Again, it is a very frail quill, and by applying a layer of head cement over it, you're just going to firm that up just a little bit, just to try to give your fly a little more durability to help ensure that that quill doesn't snap off on you as you fish it. So there you have it. That is a quill Gordon.